Hi, guys. Welcome to a new episode of Soulfully Smart, where we explore different concepts through the ideas or the lens of a person or a very normal person who's going through a spiritual journey, right? And today's topic is going to be about food. And this topic is really close to my heart because, for those of you who don't know, I actually am in the food industry and the hospitality industry myself. I'm a food entrepreneur since a very young age, like in my early 20s, I actually started my own food journey and I've been cooking since the age of 11 and it is just such an integral part of just who I am, how I express love to people and myself. And it's a big part of everybody's life, isn't it? Like, I mean, it's something that you do 3 times a day. And every single being in the world has to eat to survive. And our landscape, our culture, our everything is so deeply shaped by such a menial thing, right? So, yeah, I thought that this would be a great topic to explore, um, you know, um, and in this episode. So my philosophy on food actually started evolving, since obviously I was 11 years old, I've been cooking, but obviously it has evolved, since then. Like, I used to cook food just because it was like delicious and I enjoyed, feeding people because it was such a important way in the way that I loved myself. Like, I remember I would come back from school and I would kind of make myself dosas that my mom taught me how to make when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And then I started making it for everybody at home because my sister used to love the way that I used to make dosas. And it was just like one of those things where you get like instant gratification, you get an instant yum, or it's just. It fills you with so much joy, right? When you eat something that is really nice. Um, so yeah, it's and when you feed somebody, there's something about it that kind of gives you like this feeling of satisfaction, and that always kind of stayed with me, which is why it became like such an important part of my life. It's instant joy, and in the ethos of even what I believe, and literally it is the tagline of my brand, which is Cheat Eats. It is food loves you, and it's true. It's how we can be sure that nature does nourish us, that we have such, we don't just have food, but we have a variety of food, to actually keep us entertained and to fall in love, the same with nourishment in many different ways. But all of us, have like a different relationship with food. And now, as of late, I believe that people have become so nonchalant, and maybe for the first time in so many millennia, we probably produce so much more and we overconsume as much as we do now. I don't think overconsumption has ever been such a big issue as it is nowadays. um, we have so many people telling us what to eat and what not to eat, and there is so much information out there, not only on what to eat and what not to eat, but just the amount of recipes. Because of all this cacophony of around us when it comes to food, I actually during the pandemic found somebody who really shaped my opinion on food. There is this name that really rings true with me and what I believe about food, and that is Michael Pollan. So this happened during the pandemic when there were we were just sitting at home and we didn't really have much to do. So I watched the show called Cooked, which really defined the way I thought about food. And after that, I actually watched a lot of work about that Michael Pollan would get into. So Michael Pollan's philosophy on food is something that I believe very deeply in, and I really think that everybody watching this should probably look him up. Go through stuff that he comes up with. It's great, and I highly recommend it. Um, so more than anything, he talks about eating local. He talks more about how one must look at food. So that is something that shaped me. Then just pure deliciousness, all obviously, is something that motivates me a lot when it comes to exploring food. My mother's cooking, my grandmother's cooking, both of them, like my maternal grandmother and my paternal grandmother. My maternal grandmother is Goan. My paternal grandmother is proper Tambram, like, and they were both absolutely amazing cooks in their own right. And yeah, it's like, once you go down the local food trajectory, it's just um, such a gratifying thing to explore, like, because as a person who grew up with mixed cultures and didn't speak either languages, food became such a strong way for me to connect with my culture. Like, because you didn't have to really speak a language, it is just that you had to understand, like, the topography that is associated with beautiful food and how that affects you, and in what season do you eat them, and the occasion that it is linked to, and all sorts of beautiful things. And then came yoga into my life, like much later in my life. So it is so beautiful that yoga gives food the kind of respect and honor and importance that it deserves. Because so in yoga there are five koshas, right? Your body is not just physical; it is like, there are five bodies, which we will probably explore in another video. Right now, we're just kind of sticking to the first one, which is literally, it's called Annamaya Kosh, right? So Annamaya Kosha literally means your physical sthula body. Sthula would mean more than just physical. It would mean material, something that you can touch, something that it is tangible. Tangible would probably be a good word for sthula. Okay, so your Annamaya Kosha is literally coming from the words Annamaya, which means that Anna uh, is what makes this, or it comprises of Anna, right? So this body. So Anna would literally translate to grains or food, right? So it is literally saying that you are what you eat. This physical body is literally an accumulation of what you eat and how it reacts to your genetics, to your environment, and your proportions, right? So it's funny to think that this, who you are literally right now physically, is just an accumulation of what you ate. So that is the kind of importance that the yogic sciences gives to food. It calls the body Annamaya Kosha, which is actually a fact. To get to the bottom of the philosophy that I believe in when it comes to nourishing your physical body, I genuinely will say that I do not believe in like eliminating any kind of food group. Like a lot of people, at least now people are becoming a little wiser, but before this there used to be like a lot of advertising on like carbs being the bad guy, or fat being the bad guy, or some other kind of nutrient kind of being something that you must eliminate from your diet. I think that that's absolute nonsense. I truly believe that your body needs every single kind of nourishment that it can get. In fact, the more varied, the better. Like, eat every possible thing. Eat your fruits, eat your vegetables, eat your carbohydrates, eat your fats, eat your protein. Everything obviously has to be in its measurements, which is probably where we are getting to next, right? Um, so to get back to what Michael Pollan had said, he made the concept of eating correctly so easy. So he literally put it in like a sentence, right? So eat food, okay? Eat food, not too much, mostly plants, okay? That's simple. Like, it is not about like, oh, you should eat this at this time or that at that time, and this is what you should do or not do, and he just made it like really easy. right? Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. So, eat food means real food, not something that comes in a packet, not something that is processed. Um, like, preferably something that your grandmother would recognize as an ingredient. Eat that as food. Like, let's just eat food, like real food. Okay. Um, then not too much. So obviously this is about portion control. It's probably why I truly believe that even though the French and the Japanese, the French people are basically people who live on bread and butter and wine and cheese and are thin, is because they eat in small portions, right? And they walk a lot. So obviously once you eat, you must also exercise and burn whatever you eat. So that's important. But portion control is also extremely important. Like, even if you go to Japan, they have like five things aside their actual bowl of rice or ramen or whatever. Like, they're eating their carbs, that's fine, but they also have like a lot of salad with it. So do the French, by the way. Like, the French people, like, they take a long break for lunch and they have like their salads, then they will have their entremets, then they will have their main course. So basically, to just really keep it varied and have a little bit of everything, and that usually gives you like health, true health. Which is what I also want to get to, is that um, I don't think that everybody's supposed to be skinny. I genuinely don't. I think that there are a lot of people who are uh, born with different body types. There are people who are really skinny who can eat a lot because that's just their metabolism. And there are lots of people who are kind of chunky, and even in spite of them eating less. And that does not mean that they're not fit. Okay. And like, I truly believe that if you eat a little bit of everything, you will stay fit. Although I am a big proponent of body positivity, I will also hit the reverse, or the contrast point, and say that just because of body positivity, that does not mean that okay, we can bloat as much, we can eat as much as we want and not be accountable. That's not true. I think that one should always be healthy, like the thing says, right? Like, eat food, not too much. So just the right amount. In the yogic sciences, they say Anjani Patra. So the amount of your palm is the size of your stomach, and that is exactly how much you should eat. Nothing more than what would fit in your palm. So that is another thing. But yeah, other than that, I think that you should eat every single thing. You should eat your butter. I honestly, this might be a little controversial, but I also don't believe in eliminating sugar, um, because I have the belief that your body should be able to digest or assimilate anything. Like, don't be too clean, don't be too like, I'm not going to eat anything bad. Once in a while it's fine. In fact, I think that if your body just collapses if you eat a potato chip, that's just unfortunate. Your body should be tough, your body should be able to withstand anything, right? So I do believe that you should have even white sugar. But again, like, should you have aerated drinks? No. Should you take a little this thing sugar in your tea without it being the end of the world? Sure. Like, if you're not diabetic or if you don't have any health issues, this is my opinion. So, do I have a little sugar in my tea? Yeah. Do I have aerated drinks? No. So, like, yeah. So, um, this is I believe that your body needs its vitamins, it needs its fats, it needs every single thing. Your hair, your eyes, your bones, your blood, all need different things, and they will get it from different things in their diet. I also think that this is also propagated through eating a little bit of raw food. Like, have a fruit, have a salad, because cooking does get rid of some nutritional value of foods. So, yeah, even if you're eating, this is a great tip that I received from one of the teachers that teach her Art of Living. So she said that even if you're eating like a food that is a day old, which is said to not be great in according to the yogic sciences, because the freshness is what gives you more prana. Prana is basically life force energy, right? And obviously, since you eat to sustain your life force energy, you should get a lot of it from food. Others, it's just stored as fat, and it's basically of no use to your body, and will kind of drain your energy rather than restore it. So yeah, makes sense. So which is why, um, like she said, that if you eat a food that is a day old, then you eat like something that is high prana with it, like you eat a pumpkin sabji, or have a salad, or have a fruit with it, or an hour before you eat your food. So that way you're kind of balancing the pranic forces, while still not putting your food to waste. So yeah, that's a nice little hack, I thought. Now I wanted to get into the truly controversial part of this video, which is part of my journey so far into spirituality, which is what I went through in terms of transformation. Because I mean, this whole episode series is just about what parts of me went through a transformation because of spirituality, right? So this is personally what I went through. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about it, and that is vegetarianism. So I used to eat meat like properly, right? And like I loved it. It's not even like I always thought it was questionable or I was extremely sensitive to it. I'm like, no. I went and brought meat. I have picked out a crab and then eaten the same crab later without feeling a thing. I have cooked this thing meat and butchered meat, everything myself, and I've frankly never felt a thing. And I loved eating meat. I relished it. I probably ate it like at least, if not once, then at least twice a week, right? But weirdly, once I kind of got into meditation, um, that kind of changed for me. So to just get into story time. Um, so I used to meditate, and I literally would. I still do, and even then, I used to get pangs for eating Chinese, right? So, and my classic order, like I think a lot of people, is was like a veg fried rice and a chili chicken dry, right? And it used to be like my stable. Like if I was sad, if I didn't understand something about the world, I would just eat fried rice and chili chicken and everything would be fine again. So that was just it, right? But I had started meditating and I found that I was not getting the pang to eat fried rice and chili chicken yet, okay? Which was weird to me. So I was just like, no, I will order for fried rice and chili chicken. And the thing was, it's not like they tell you to not eat non vegetarian food. But it is advised that you be vegetarian and all that. Your journey is better that way. But I always was like, yeah, whatever, don't tell me what to eat, sort of thing. And also, it was basically what I do for a living, right? So I was just like, how will I be able to be in the food industry without being able to eat all the food that I can, right? I used to meditate, and it suddenly my craving for it kind of went down, which was strange to me. So once I just ordered for it and I ate it. I ate it. It's not like I felt guilty about it, but it just didn't give me the kind of joy that satisfying a craving does, right? So I was like, that's weird. And then, um, so a month goes by, or 2 months go by, and I go to Goa to just chill by myself. And this is at a time when I was not drinking. I had already quit drinking. I had already quit smoking. Everything. I was completely clean. So I go to this place, and it was just like a tradition, right, for me to go to Goa and have like their fresh, beautiful prawns that they would get over there. And so I ordered for a plate because I was like, this is absolute nonsense now. Now I really need to, try to eat prawns, because like who comes to Goa and doesn't eat seafood? That's madness, right? So I order for a plate of prawns, and those beautiful butter garlic fried prawns that everybody likes to eat, at least all the non-vegetarians out there. So I ordered for a plate, and it comes to me. Quick context: before I order for the plate of prawns, I had gone for a beautiful sunset swim, right? At exactly sunset, I go, and I'm pretty good at swimming, so I go slightly deeper into the water so I can actually swim, right? At the same time, not retarded, do not go where my feet don't touch the ground. If I kind of stretch myself, didn't go too far away from there. So it was like this beautiful experience where I was just swimming, and because I was alone, I felt like I was meditating a lot because I was alone, and not drinking or doing any of that stuff. Um, I felt very one with nature, and that's the entire thing that monks and like, everybody who basically talks about spirituality basically speaks about the spirit of oneness, right? um so I go to the water and I'm just kind of like bobbing, like, like that, on the waves. And there were like these big waves that were coming and I was bobbing in them, and I literally felt like the sea was like a mother, and just, how moms just kind of like throw their babies in the air and catch them, like moms and dads or whatever, just throw their baby in the air and then catch it and throw, and like, so that was literally happening to me because these really big powerful waves are taking me up and then bringing me down again, and I was going like wee coming back down, right? So I literally felt like I was like a child of the sea, right? When I was, in her playing, you know, and swimming around. And so I come back out and I order for the plate of prawns. And I felt like if I was a child of the sea, and that was such a deep, beautiful experience for me, then this prawn in here on my plate right now was also a child of the sea, and I'm essentially, I felt like that prawn, because they were kept whole, they were not completely shelled and stuff like that, they were kept whole. I could, like, the eyes and the legs and everything, they looked really cute to me, like how you would find a puppy cute, or a kitten cute, or like, anything, like an animal that is just there, like, being minding his own business, cute, and I felt love for it, like you would for like a sibling or a friend or something like that. For a sibling, actually, um, because again, child of the sea, child of the sea, right? So I just felt terrible. I could not eat. I just could not eat it because I had like this overwhelming sensation of being, like, child of the sea, that's it. That was the end of me eating non-vegetarian food because that just kind of stayed with me, right? That, you can't really eat meat without actually taking a life. And you can eat a fruit, you can and I feel like trees and plants and all of that are just, they just want to give you, they can't eat it themselves, they don't have any use for it themselves. In fact, their propagation itself, the fact that their reproduction itself depends on, them sustaining their fruits sustaining life, right? I mean, those are the kind of trees and plants that survive, right? you know um, so it just kind of became like this overwhelming sensation where I just could not. Um, and believe me, I have debated with vegetarian people all my life. I have debated in Goa itself a year or two ago. I was probably sitting and I was debating with a Buddhist monk. I swear to God, I debated with a Buddhist monk about eating meat. And I was just like, well, if animals can feel pain, why do you just assume that plants don't feel pain? Like, you're still taking a life, and you have to uproot a, like, rice plant and all of that. And but the thing is that is all a rational thing. But if you look at it, really think about it, then, taking like an apple from a tree or a carrot from a plant is not the same as eating a chicken leg. It's a different feeling. So basically, that's what made me a vegetarian. as of now, like, practicing one, because now I just can't think of it, honestly. And even if I do think of it, and believe me, do I miss eating meat? Yes, I really do. And I want to say that out loud and proud to other people who are, who are vegetarians or vegans, who act like they're too cool to, like, oh no, I have too high morals to even miss it anymore. Or people who eat it as such disgusting demons on the planet. I'm so not like that. I totally, totally see where you guys are coming from, okay? Because I was you. And also because it's yum, it really is. And I really miss eating it sometimes. I really do. But at the same time, somewhere, um, the moral ground is kind of more important, especially because of the way that meat is produced these days. Like, at least before, like, when people used to eat meat, they would eat it when it was just like, running around in the wild. And honestly, even that time, we were more foragers than we were hunters. Even during tribal caveman times, it's true. A lot of people know this. And even when people used to eat meat, they used to eat it sparingly, and they were very aware that they were taking a life. And it used to be like a celebrational thing, like, it wasn't like an industrial thing. So, like, the moment you make an industry out of all of this, it's kind of bad. And plus, the meat that we get nowadays is like full of hormones, and they basically fatten themselves up. And like, truly, you it's called Annamaya Kosha because it truly becomes part of your body, and it actually gives you your life force energy, your prana. It becomes part of you. So I have genuinely, I swear, I would not ever tell a lie on in this platform, um, that I have actually seen my tempo go down. I have actually become a far more mentally stable person. Not that I was unstable before, but but I'm just saying, like, you kind of, lose your head sometimes at certain days. You get frustrated, or you get angry, or you're triggered, or whatnot. Like, and I have seen those episodes go down ever since I have turned to vegetarianism. So, have I seen the difference? For those who are curious, yes, I have. I have seen a difference in just my conduct. Absolutely. Like, have I become less violent in my tendencies? Absolutely. Tendencies as in, violence here, I'm talking about not physical violence, but I'm talking about violence when it comes to even thoughts or words. Like, you don't think, when somebody pisses you off now, you're far more compassionate, because um, what you do when you eat translates so much to who you are when you're actually just living life, you know. So yeah, I don't think that the topic of food or what you eat is to be taken lightly at all, because it does make such a big difference in the world, you know. What we eat does make a difference in the world. So obviously, what happens is that there are a lot of companies that actually benefit from us eating from them, like, say, McDonald's, or like other chains. I'm not even just gonna, like, name McDonald's over here. There are so many other, like, chains all over the world that create fast food, and like, thrive on us eating genetically altered food. There are giant, large fields in Punjab, like acres and acres big, where they just kind of pay farmers to grow just these hybrid potatoes that absolutely wreck the soil, and really change the landscape. Like, they might use that to grow potatoes once, and you know, if, and after that, whatever sarso, or like, local subsies, or local vegetables, or local herbs that they could grow on the same soil, can't use that anymore, because the nutrients that were required, the just the chemical balance of the soil is just completely wrecked. So they can't, like, use it for growing at least healthy produce anymore. And which is why you probably saw like our grandfathers and our grandmothers having much better longevity and much better health as compared to us, because they're just eating less genetically modified food, and they used to also eat local. Like, they even our vegetables are gotten from Swiggy or Blinkit or whatever, who probably are getting their vegetables from God Lord knows where, and God Lord knows using what kind of means. So it is so important for us to kind of, if we can, and I really do hope to put all of my efforts towards that, like, in the future, to actually source our ingredients responsibly. And there are so many seeds that are dying out, like, those big there are some kind of sprouts that are this thing dying out. There's some kinds of vegetables that are dying out, not because like, as somebody has ill intentions, but just because there is no demand for them. Like, just because we make a face, or that we are too fussy about eating food that is actually grown locally. Because face it, when you eat locally, you are actually much better suited to your to your climate conditions in your body. Like, for example, if kokum, which is something like tamarind that grows in Maharashtra, if kokum grew in Kashmir, or was consumed in Kashmir, it wouldn't be good for their body, because their conditions for food, their weather conditions are kind of colder, and like, and kokum, lends itself coldly to your body. Like, it creates coolness in your body, so it wouldn't be good for them, but it would be good for us in Maharashtra where it grows. At the same time, if we use sarso ka tel or mustard oil in our cooking over here in Maharashtra, like they do in Punjab, it is actually not very good for our health. Coconut oil is much better for us because, again, it's cooling. Whereas mustard oil it lends itself to warmth in your body, and that is not something that we need. So when we just eat things that are grown around us locally, we are actually supporting our body, and we're actually even supporting the local people around us, the soil around us, the trees around us, the animals and the birds and the bugs and everything that feed on those plants around us. So just a small decision of what we eat um, actually like, it contributes so deeply to our ecosystem and its health. So it's that ecosystem and it's this ecosystem that gets both of its health through such a seemingly small decision, but it's a huge decision. So yeah, it's something that I will always fight for. Like, not only Cheat Eats obviously always already championed this, so you can always go on Instagram and type Cheat Eats Mumbai, and you'll probably know what we're about. So it's just, and I'm really not tagging, I don't mean to do that at all, but it's just to echo what I have truly believed for this long, that food is truly something that can revolutionize the world with one decision at a time. Like, and I also, like, as a person, I create menus for people who want to make the responsible decision and probably not eat meat for like, for today, and maybe, eat meat some other time, like, just want to delay the gratification of it right now, and maybe slowly transition, who knows, like, um so yeah. And other than that, I think that food is just such a gift, and we should feel so thankful for it. And oh, and another thing, and just a small thing that goes towards being thankful for it, is this is and I'm everything that I say are things that I used to do or did until, like, even now. Okay, so like, so many of us, like, watch TV when we eat food, and that's just so, like, it's unfortunate because um, it's nature's bounty that we are basically consuming into your body, and you're putting all of the content also that you're actually mindlessly putting into your food, that also vibrationally gets into your food. So actually just try this honestly, because I've tried it and seen a difference, where you just eat food without watching TV. Just sit with your family, sit with your mom, sit with your dad. That's what I do. now, because even I'm getting over this habit. It's not like I've gotten over it. I'm better than you. No, not at all. I mean, I literally want to eat. I try not to entertain myself when I'm eating food, because food is meant to be gratefully, received and appreciated, and, just be with it, like, in the present moment. And even if you are not with it, and if you're just being with family, that's fine, because you're at least you're not taking, like, some kind of gory content, or, somebody screaming on Big Boss or something like that, when you're actually intaking the energy that is going to become part of you. So yeah, this is just a little mindfulness that has entered my life. Not a little, a lot mindfulness that has entered my life, through being soulfully smart when it comes to food. So that's it for today, and I hope you have a great time. Bye.